This is the story of the most dangerous game. Off there to the right, somewhere, is a large island, said Whitney. It's rather a mystery. What island is it? Rainsford asked. The old charts call it Ship Trap Island, Whitney replied. A suggestive name, isn't it? Sailors have a curious dread of the place. I don't know why. Some superstition. Can't see it, remarked Rainsford, trying to peer through the darkness, through the dank tropical night that was palpable as it pressed its thick warm blackness upon the yacht. Palpable, easily noticed or perceptible. You've good eyes, said Whitney, with a laugh, and I've seen you pick off a moose moving in the brown fall bush at 400 yards, but even you can't see 4 miles or so through a moonless Caribbean night. Nor 4 yards, admitted Rainsford. Ugh, it's like moist black velvet. It'll be light in Rio, promised Whitney. We should make it in a few days. I hope the Jaguar guns have come from Purdy's. We should have some good hunting up the Amazon. Great sport, hunting. So that's time for a guided reading question. The question is, let's see, who are these 2 men, Rainsford and Whitney? So are they 2 experienced sailors searching for a mysterious island? 2 friends who are on vacation to a mysterious island? They're experienced hunters sailing to the Amazon for a hunting trip? Or Rainsford is an experienced hunter on a trip and Whitney is his friend just along for the ride? So I'm going to eliminate each one. So first of all, 2 experienced sailors. They talk about sailors have a curious dread of the place. So that would tell me that they don't see themselves as sailors. 2 friends who are on a vacation to a mysterious island. Well, the place they're headed, it says it'll be light in Rio. Rio de Janeiro is a city in Brazil, which isn't on an island. So I don't think that's the right one. They're experienced hunters sailing to the Amazon for a hunting trip, and it talked about, before that question, it talked about how the Jaguar guns, they hope the Jaguar guns have come from Purdy's, so they've ordered new guns that are going to be there. So I'm going to say C is the correct answer, and now we can continue. Question number 2 that we'll be looking for, well, I guess we won't see that until we get there. Okay. Great sport, hunting. The best sport in the world, agreed Rainsford. For the hunter, amended Whitney, not for the Jaguar. Don't talk rot, Whitney, said Rainsford. You're a big game hunter, not a philosopher. Who cares how a jaguar feels? And game in this case is wild animals or birds that are hunted for sport and sometimes cooked and eaten. Who cares how a jaguar feels? Perhaps the jaguar does, observed Whitney. Pah, they've no understanding. Even so, I rather think they understand one thing, fear, the fear of pain and the fear of death. Nonsense, laughed Rainsford. This hot weather's making you soft, Whitney. Be a realist. The world is made up of 2 classes, the hunters and the huntees. Luckily, you and I are the hunters. Do you think we've passed that island yet? Now, question 2. How do Rainsford and Whitney feel about hunting? Whitney loves it, but Rainsford thinks it's just cruel. Both men agree that it's acceptable for survival, but not for sport. Both men enjoy hunting as a sport, but because of their talent, they don't take it too seriously. Or both men enjoy hunting as a sport, but Rainsford takes it so seriously that it affects his worldview. And I'm going to look at this last section when Rainsford says, this hot weather is making you soft, Whitney. Be a realist. The world is made up of 2 classes. So that really has changed his worldview, and it does seem that Rainsford is the one who is kind of the more serious hunter. So I think D is a better choice there, and Common Lit agrees with me. Okay, so do you think we've passed that island yet? I can't tell in the dark. I hope so. Why? Asked Rainsford. Cannibals? Oh, although the place has a reputation, a bad one. Cannibals? Suggested Rainsford. Hardly. Even cannibals wouldn't live in such a godforsaken place. But it's gotten into sailor lore somehow. Didn't you notice that the crew's nerves seemed a bit jumpy today? They were a bit strange now you mention it. Even Captain Nielsen. Yes, even that tough-minded old Swede who'd go up to the devil himself and ask him for a light. Those fishy blue eyes held a look I never saw there before. All I could get out of him was, "This place has an evil name among seafaring men, sir." Then he said to me very gravely, "Don't you feel anything?" as if the air about us was actually poisonous. Now, you mustn't laugh when I tell you this. I did feel something like a sudden chill. There was no breeze. The sea was flat as a plate glass window. We were drawing near the island then. What I felt was a mental chill, a sort of sudden dread. Pure imagination, said Rainsford. One superstitious sailor can taint the whole ship's company with his fear. Maybe, but sometimes I think sailors have an extra sense that tells them when they're in danger. Sometimes I think evil is a tangible thing, with wavelengths just like sound and light have. An evil place can, so to speak, broadcast vibrations of evil. Anyhow, I'm glad we're getting out of this zone. Well, I think I'll turn in now, Rainsford. I'm not sleepy, said Rainsford. I'm going to smoke another pipe up on the afterdeck. Good night, then, Rainsford. See you at breakfast. Right. Good night, Whitney. So, question 3. How do the sailors in Rainsford feel about the island? The sailors believe it's a place of evil, but Rainsford thinks they're just superstitious. I'm leaning towards that one already. Rainsford believes the rumor that the island is filled with cannibals, but the sailors know it's just an island. The sailors, I'm going to prove that one wrong, that it's the sailors that are the more superstitious about it. The sailors do not believe the island exists, thinking that it's just a myth, and we know that's not true. And the sailors believe it's a place of evil, that's true. And Rainsford trusts their judgment like he trusts his hunting instinct. I would say no. I think it's going to be A. Good. Moving on. There was no sound in the night as Rainsford sat there but the muffled throb of the engine that drove the yacht swiftly through the darkness and the swish and ripple of the wash of the propeller. Rainsford, reclining in a steamer chair, indolently, which means lazily, puffed on his favorite briar, which is a tobacco pipe. The sensuous drowsiness, sensuous is pleasing to the senses, of the night was on him. It's so dark, he thought, that I could sleep without closing my eyes. The night would be my eyelids. An abrupt sound startled him. Off to the right he heard it, and his ears, expert in such matters, could not be mistaken. Again he heard the sound, and again. Somewhere off in the blackness, someone had fired a gun 3 times. Rainsford sprang up and moved quickly to the rail, mystified. He strained his eyes in the direction from which the reports had come, but it was like trying to see through a blanket. He leaped up on the rail and balanced himself there to get greater elevation. His pipe, striking a rope, was knocked from his mouth. He lunged for it. A short, hoarse cry came from his lips as he realized he had reached too far and had lost his balance. The cry was pinched off short as the blood-warm waters of the Caribbean Sea closed over his head. Question. When Rainsford hears a strange noise, he rushes to the rail, recognizing the sound of a gunshot, but falls off the yacht as he reaches out for his pipe. That sounds true to me. He rushes to the rail, recognizing the sound of a person yelling. Nope, it was gunshots. He tries to run for help. Nope. He was startled out of his sleep. Nope, he wasn't even asleep yet, so A is correct. He struggled up to the surface and tried to cry out, but the wash from the speeding yacht slapped him in the face, and the salt water in his open mouth made him gag and strangle. Desperately he struck out with long strokes after the receding light of the yacht, but he stopped before he had swum 50 feet. A certain cool-headedness had come to him. It was not the first time he'd been in a tight place. There was a chance that his cries could be heard by someone aboard the yacht, but that chance was slender and grew more slender as the yacht raced on. He wrestled himself out of his clothes and shouted with all his power. The lights of the yacht became faint and ever-vanishing fireflies. Then they were blotted out entirely by the night. So how does Rainsford react to falling off the yacht? He calls to the boat for help, even when it sails away, suggesting that his eyesight is poor. He abandons the yacht and immediately swims for the shore. He tries his best to reach the yacht, manages to calm himself down, then assesses the situation, or he's relatively calm as if he doesn't understand the extent of the problem he now faces. So, at first he did try to call for help, but as it sailed away, he knew that was hopeless. Let me see. It does say he shouted with all his power. I'm going to try that one. Nope. Okay, tries his best to reach the yacht and then calms himself down and assesses. That might be true. There we go. I thought it was interesting when it talked about struggling out of his clothes or wrestled out of his clothes. It didn't say why, but if you've ever tried swimming with clothes on, it's really hard. So I think just to keep himself afloat, he probably took his clothes off so he'd be able to swim better to safety. Rainsford remembered the shots. They had come from the right, and doggedly he swam in that direction. Doggedly means stubbornly determined. Swam in that direction, swimming with slow, deliberate strokes, conserving his strength. For a seemingly endless time he fought the sea. He began to count his strokes. He could do possibly 100 more, and then Rainsford heard a sound. It came out of the darkness, a high, screaming sound, the sound of an animal in an extremity of anguish and terror. He didn't recognize the animal that made the sound. He didn't try to. With fresh vitality he swam toward the sound. He heard it again, then it was cut short by another noise, crisp, staccato. Staccato describes a series of sounds that are short and separate. Pistol shot, muttered Rainsford, swimming on. 10 minutes of determined effort brought another sound to his ears, the most welcome he had ever heard, the muttering and growling of the sea breaking on a rocky shore. He was almost on the rocks before he saw them. On a night less calm, he would have been shattered against them. With his remaining strength, he dragged himself from the swirling waters. Jagged crags appeared to jut up into the opaqueness. He forced himself upward, hand over hand, gasping, his hands raw. He reached a flat place at the top. Dense jungle came down to the very edge of the cliffs. What perils that tangle of trees and underbrush might hold for him didn't concern Rainsford just then. All he knew was that he was safe from his enemy, the sea, and that utter weariness was upon him. He flung himself down at the jungle edge and tumbled headlong into the deepest sleep of his life. When he opened his eyes, he knew from the position of the sun that it was late in the afternoon. Sleep had given him new vigor, which is energy and enthusiasm. A sharp hunger was picking at him. He looked about him almost cheerfully. Where there are pistol shots, there are men. Where there are men, there is food, he thought. But what kind of men, he wondered, in so forbidding a place? An unbroken front of snarled and jagged jungle fringed the shore. After reaching the island shore, why does Rainsford move toward the sound of the pistol? Because he wants to find out who was shooting before he fell off the yacht? Because it means he will hopefully find someone who will help him? Because he wants to punish whoever was shooting and made him fall off the yacht, or because he hopes to find another hunter and join in on the sport? So he's looking for food. He's hoping he'll be able to get help there. I'm going to pause at this point, and I'll continue in another video segment.